30 Indian hackers stole $1 billion from American retirees, but a hidden tracker revealed the shocking truth. 30 hackers operating from call centers in Mumbai, India, stole $1 billion from American retirees over 18 months. Elderly victims across the United States lost their life savings to sophisticated phone scams that convinced them their computers were infected, their bank accounts compromised, or their Social Security numbers stolen. The FBI Cybercrime Division had been investigating for over a year with no breakthrough. The criminals used encrypted communications, cryptocurrency transfers, and fake identities that made them virtually impossible to trace. Until Agent John Scott planted a hidden digital tracker in a single transaction and watched as it revealed the entire criminal network, leading to the largest international fraud bust in FBI history. This is the story of how one investigator's clever trap brought down a $1 billion scam ring that thought they were untouchable. Chapter 1. The $1 billion phone call. Agent John Scott of the FBI's Cyber Fraud Division received the case file on a cold Tuesday morning in January. It landed on his desk in San Francisco with a yellow priority sticker and a handwritten note from his supervisor. Scott, this is getting out of control. Hundreds of victims, millions gone. We need your best work. Davidson. John Scott opened the file and immediately felt the familiar anger rising in his chest. Another elderly victim, another life destroyed by criminals who preyed on the most vulnerable. The victim was Margaret Chung, a 73-year-old retired teacher from Sacramento who had lost $47,000, her entire retirement savings, in a single afternoon. Scott had been with the FBI for 12 years, the last 6 focused exclusively on international cybercrime. He'd seen countless scams, but these India-based operations targeting American seniors made his blood boil. They were sophisticated, ruthless, and nearly impossible to stop. The case report detailed how Margaret's nightmare began. She received a phone call at 2:15 p.m. from someone claiming to be from Microsoft Windows Security Alert Center. The caller had an Indian accent but spoke confidently in English with urgency that immediately put Margaret on edge. "Ma'am, this is a critical security alert," the scammer had said, according to the phone recording that Margaret's daughter later provided to police. "Our system has detected that your computer is infected with dangerous malware. Right now, hackers from Russia are accessing your personal information, your bank accounts, your social security number, everything. We need to act immediately." Margaret, who lived alone since her husband died 2 years ago, panicked. She wasn't tech-savvy, and the official-sounding voice frightened her. "What do I do?" she'd asked, her voice trembling on the recording. "Don't worry, ma'am. I'm going to help you. But we need to move fast. First, I need you to go to your computer and open your web browser." The scammer guided Margaret through installing remote access software called TeamViewer Legitimate Software that the hackers abused for criminal purposes. Once installed, it gave the Indian hacker complete control of Margaret's computer screen. He could see everything she saw, control her mouse, access her files. The hacker then displayed fabricated security scan results showing hundreds of viruses, trojans, and active hacking attempts on her computer. He showed her actual bank website, which he navigated to using her computer, and claimed that hackers were attempting unauthorized withdrawals at this very moment. "Ma'am, I can see they've already stolen $5,000 from your account." The scammer lied. "If we don't stop them right now, they'll take everything. Your entire life savings will be gone in the next hour." Terrified and confused, Margaret did exactly what the criminal told her to do. He instructed her to log into her online banking while he watched through the remote access software. He told her he needed to create a secure government protection account to move her money somewhere the Russian hackers couldn't reach it. What happened next made John Scott's jaw clench as he read the report. Margaret, following the scammer's instructions, transferred $47,000 to a cryptocurrency exchange account. The hacker, still controlling her computer remotely, then converted the money to Bitcoin and transferred it through a series of Tumblr services designed to make the transactions untraceable. By the time Margaret's daughter came to visit that evening and discovered what happened, the money was gone, vanished into the digital void, converted and dispersed through dozens of cryptocurrency wallets across multiple countries. Margaret wasn't alone. As John Scott flipped through the case file, he saw the pattern: 37 similar cases in the past 6 months. All elderly victims, all losing between $10,000 and $150,000, all following the same script-fake Microsoft or Apple security calls, remote access software, panic, and cryptocurrency transfers. Total losses so far, $2.7 million. And those were just the reported cases. Scott knew from experience that most elderly victims were too embarrassed to report being scammed, which meant the real number was probably 5 times higher. But this wasn't just Margaret's case anymore. Scott's supervisor had attached additional intelligence reports to the file. The FBI's International Operations Division had been tracking these India-based scam operations for 18 months. Their conservative estimate: over $1 billion stolen from American retirees. $1 billion. Thousands of victims. Elderly Americans who'd worked their entire lives only to lose everything to criminals operating from call centers in Mumbai with complete impunity. The Indian authorities had been cooperative, but overwhelmed. Every time they raided one call center, 3 more popped up. The scammers used fake identities, encrypted communications, cryptocurrency, and sophisticated technical methods to hide their trails. The FBI had arrested a few low-level money mules in the United States people who helped transfer the stolen funds, but never the actual hackers in India, until now. Because John Scott had an idea, a risky, technically complex, potentially brilliant idea that might finally expose the entire network. He picked up his phone and called his supervisor. "Davidson, I need authorization for an undercover operation, and I need to coordinate with NSA Cyber Division for some specialized tracking software." "What are you thinking, Scott?" "I'm thinking we stop chasing them and let them come to us. We give them exactly what they want: a perfect victim. An elderly target with a large bank account, poor computer security, and no family to interfere. Except this victim will be completely fake, and every transaction they make will be tagged with a tracker they'll never detect." "You want to set up a honeypot operation?" "Not just a honeypot, a Trojan horse. We let them steal from our fake victim. We let them think they've won. And while they're celebrating and moving the money, our tracker follows every transfer, every conversion, every wallet. It maps their entire network, who they work with, Where the money goes, who the leaders are, everything. There was a pause. Scott, that's ambitious and expensive. And if it fails, you'll have wasted months of resources. And if it works, we dismantle $1 billion criminal empire and get justice for thousands of victims, including Margaret Chen. Another pause. Then, you have authorization. But Scott, make it count. This is your shot. John Scott hung up and immediately began planning the most important case of his career. He would create the perfect victim, an irresistible target. And when the Indian hackers took the bait, they'd have no idea they were swallowing a poison pill that would destroy their entire operation. Margaret Chen would get her justice. They all would. 3 weeks later, Dorothy Williams came into existence. She wasn't real, but on paper and online she was perfect. Agent John Scott and his team at the FBI Cyber Division had created an elaborate digital identity. Dorothy Williams, age 76, widow, retired librarian from Scottsdale, Arizona. Her fictional deceased husband had been an engineer for Boeing, leaving her with a comfortable retirement account containing $340,000. The FBI had set up everything. Bank accounts with real money, FBI operational funds, a real phone number that forwarded to a secure FBI facility, social media profiles showing pictures of a sweet elderly woman, actually a retired FBI consultant who volunteered for the role, and even a realistic computer with intentionally poor security, making it an attractive target. Now they just needed the scammers to find her. That was easier than most people realized. The Indian scam operations obtained their victim lists from data breaches, purchased information from the dark web, and used automated systems to call millions of American phone numbers. Elderly people who answered and engaged with the calls got flagged as potential targets. John Scott's team made sure Dorothy Williams appeared on multiple lists that were known to be accessed by scam operations. They even had Dorothy's phone number accidentally included in a fake data breach that they knew the Indian criminals monitored. Then they waited. On day 4, Dorothy's phone rang. The call came in at 10:47 a.m. Arizona time. The FBI Monitoring Center in San Francisco immediately lit up. Agent Scott put on his headphones and listened as one of his team members, a 58-year-old female agent named Patricia Rodriguez, answered in character. "Hello," Patricia said, her voice perfectly mimicking an elderly woman's cautious telephone manner. "Hello, ma'am. This is David calling from Microsoft Windows Technical Support Department." The voice had a thick Indian accent. "We have detected serious security threats on your computer. Your device is sending us error reports showing virus infections and potential identity theft activity." Scott watched as his technical team immediately began tracing the call. It was being routed through multiple VoIP services, voice over Internet protocol, designed to hide the true origin. But they'd anticipated this. They had NSA-level tracking tools running in parallel. Patricia, playing Dorothy perfectly, sounded concerned. "Oh my goodness, really? I have been noticing my computer running slowly lately." "Yes, ma'am, that is because of the infections. This is very serious. The hackers may already have access to your personal information, your bank accounts, your social security number. We need to check your computer immediately to prevent further damage." The script was identical to what Margaret Chen had experienced, word for word. These scammers had perfected their approach through thousands of successful thefts. "What do I need to do?" Patricia asked, her voice trembling slightly with manufactured fear. "I need you to go to your computer right now, ma'am." "Can you do that for me?" Yes. I'm going to my office." "Just a moment." Patricia made shuffling sounds, playing up the elderly character. Over the next 40 minutes, the scammer, who eventually identified himself as Steve Johnson from California, despite his obvious Indian accent, walked Dorothy through installing TeamViewer remote access software. The FBI's specially prepared computer allowed the installation, but simultaneously deployed its hidden payload, a sophisticated tracking program developed by the NSA specifically for this operation. The tracker was invisible to the scammer. It embedded itself in every transaction, every file transfer, every communication. Like a digital bloodhound, it would follow wherever the stolen money went and silently report back to the FBI. Scott watched his monitors as the scammer took control of Dorothy's computer. The criminal displayed fake virus scans, showed fabricated hacker activity, and created the usual panic. Then came the pitch. Dorothy needed to secure her money immediately by transferring it to a government protection account. "Ma'am, I can see that you have $340,000 in your bank account," the scammer said, his voice taking on a more excited tone. He'd found a major target. "The hackers can see this too. They are planning to steal everything tonight. We need to move your money to a Federal Reserve protection vault immediately." "All of it?" Patricia asked, sounding overwhelmed. "Yes, ma'am, every penny. It's the only way to keep it safe. Once it's in the Federal Reserve vault, the hackers cannot touch it. In 3 days after we catch these criminals, your money will be returned to your regular account. But right now, we must act fast." Patricia, following the script Scott had prepared, expressed reluctance and confusion, making it believable. Not too easy, or the scammer might suspect a trap. But eventually, after 20 minutes of persuasion, Dorothy agreed. Scott watched as Patricia logged into the fake bank account and began the transfer process. The scammer, controlling the computer remotely, guided every step. The money moved from Dorothy's Bank of America account to a cryptocurrency exchange, a company called Coinbase. Then the scammer converted it to Bitcoin. And that's when the magic happened. The hidden tracker, embedded in the transaction data, began its work. As the Bitcoin moved from wallet to wallet, being tumbled and split to hide its origins, the tracker followed. It silently reported every destination, every wallet address, every person who touched the money. On Scott's monitor, a map began to form. Not a geographic map, but a network map, a web showing how the stolen Bitcoin flowed through the criminal ecosystem. One wallet split into 3. Those 3 split into 12. Those 12 split into 54. The money was being dispersed and cleaned, exactly as expected. But unlike previous cases where this dispersion made the money impossible to trace, Scott's tracker saw everything. It mapped the entire network in real time. "How long until we have the full picture?" Scott asked his technical lead, a brilliant young analyst named Kevin Park. "Based on their previous patterns, they'll finish the initial distribution in about 6 hours. Then they'll let it sit for 48 hours before consolidating into their main collection wallets. That's when we'll see the whole network, every wallet, every person involved, every destination." Scott nodded. And the location trace? Already working on it. The initial call came from Mumbai, as expected. We're tracing the specific call center now. Should have an address within 12 hours. 72 hours later, Agent John Scott stood in a secure conference room at FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C., presenting his findings to a room full of officials from the FBI, Interpol, the Indian Central Bureau of Investigation, CBI, and even representatives from the U.S. Treasury Department. On the screen behind him was the most comprehensive map of an international fraud network ever assembled. 30 individuals, Scott explained, using a laser pointer to highlight clusters on the network map, operating from 5 different call centers across Mumbai and Delhi. The money flows through exactly 247 cryptocurrency wallets, then consolidates into 12 main collection points. From there, it's converted back to traditional currency and deposited into banks in India, Singapore, and Dubai. He clicked to the next slide photographs of buildings. We have physical addresses for all 5 call centers. We have identified 23 of the 30 individuals involved, including the operations leader, a 34-year-old Indian national named Rayesh Patel, who runs this from a luxury apartment in Mumbai. The Indian CBI director leaned forward. "How did you obtain all this information?" Scott allowed himself a small smile. "We gave them a target they couldn't resist. And when they took the bait, they swallowed a tracker that exposed their entire operation. Every transaction, every person, every location." The FBI director spoke. "What's the plan?" "Coordinated simultaneous raids. The Indian CBI has already obtained warrants for all 5 locations and 23 individuals. We'll hit them all at the same time, 6 a.m. Mumbai time, which is 5:30 p.m. Eastern. They won't have time to warn each other or destroy evidence." "What about the money?" "We've already frozen the 12 main collection wallets. The Treasury Department and international banking authorities have frozen the associated bank accounts. We estimate we'll recover approximately $340 million, about 34% of the total stolen funds. The rest was already dispersed to the individual scammers or converted and spent. It wasn't everything, but it was the largest recovery in a case like this ever." 4 days later, at precisely 6 a.m. Mumbai time, Indian police and CBI agents simultaneously raided all 5 call centers. 29 people were arrested on the spot. Computers, phones, records, everything was seized. The 30th suspect, Rayesh Patel, was arrested at his luxury apartment while sleeping next to his girlfriend. In his bedroom safe, agents found $2.3 million in cash, gold bars, and detailed records of the operation's finances. Agent John Scott watched the raids via live video feed from FBI headquarters, surrounded by his team. When the last suspect was handcuffed and led away, the room erupted in applause. But Scott didn't celebrate. Not yet. He picked up his phone and made a call to Sacramento, California. A familiar voice answered. "Mrs. Chum, this is Agent John Scott from the FBI. I have good news about your case." Margaret Chum cried when Scott told her that not only had they arrested the people who'd stolen her money, but that she would be receiving a full refund, $47,000, restored to her account within 30 days, paid from the seized assets. She wasn't the only one. Over the next 3 months, The FBI contacted over 800 identified victims whose stolen funds could be traced and recovered. Checks were mailed, bank accounts were credited, and for the first time in their nightmare, elderly Americans who'd been victimized got their justice. Rayesh Patel and his 29 accomplices faced trial in India on charges of fraud, theft, and organized crime. The evidence against them was overwhelming. Not just the digital records, but testimony from victims, financial records, and even recorded phone calls of them admitting to the scams. Patel was sentenced to 23 years in prison. His co-conspirators received sentences ranging from 8 to 18 years. The Indian government, embarrassed by the international attention, launched a nationwide crackdown on scam operations. Hundreds of fake call centers were shut down. New laws were passed, making it easier to prosecute international fraud. Did it stop all the scams? No. As long as there was money to be stolen and vulnerable people to target, criminals would try. But for the first time, they knew they weren't untouchable. They knew that American law enforcement could reach across the world and bring them to justice. And they knew that Agent John Scott was watching. 6 months after the arrests, Agent John Scott received an invitation in the mail. It was from Margaret Chun, inviting him to her 74th birthday party in Sacramento. He almost didn't go. He wasn't much for parties, and he'd already moved on to other cases. There was always another criminal, another victim, another investigation demanding his attention. But something made him accept. The party was at Margaret's daughter's house, a modest suburban home with a backyard full of family and friends. When Scott arrived, Margaret saw him and immediately rushed over, hugging him like he was family. "You came. Oh, Agent Scott, you came. Happy birthday, Mrs. Chun. Please, call me Margaret." She grabbed his hand and pulled him toward a group of elderly people standing near the food table. "Everyone, this is Agent Scott. He's the one I told you about. The one who got my money back." Scott suddenly found himself surrounded by a dozen seniors, all thanking him, shaking his hand, some with tears in their eyes. Several of them were Margaret's friends who'd also been victims of scams. Some had gotten their money back through Scott's investigation. Others hadn't been as lucky. An 80-year-old man named Harold shook Scott's hand firmly. "Thank you for caring about us. A lot of people think we're just stupid old folks who deserve what we get for being gullible. But these criminals are sophisticated. They're professionals. And they prey on our trust. You're not stupid," Scott said firmly. "You're victims of organized crime, and you deserve justice just like anyone else." He stayed at the party for 3 hours, far longer than he'd planned. He heard stories, met families, saw the real human impact of the crimes he investigated. These weren't just case files and statistics. They were people, real people with lives and histories and dignity. As he was leaving, Margaret walked him to his car. "Agent Scott, I need you to know something. When I lost that money, I thought about suicide. I really did. I felt so stupid, so worthless. I thought I'd ruined my daughter's inheritance, embarrassed my family. I didn't want to live anymore." Scott felt a lump in his throat. "But then you called, and you told me you'd caught them, and you told me I'd get my money back. And for the first time since it happened, I felt like maybe I wasn't worthless, like maybe it wasn't my fault, like maybe there was justice in the world after all." She hugged him again. "You saved more than my money, Agent Scott. You saved my life. And I know there are hundreds of others who feel the same way. As Scott drove back to San Francisco that evening, he thought about his career. 12 years with the FBI, hundreds of cases, thousands of hours staring at computer screens and following digital trails. And it all came down to this. People like Margaret Chung, people who deserved protection, people who deserved justice, people who deserved someone fighting for them when they couldn't fight for themselves. 30 Indian hackers had stolen $1 billion from American retirees, but Agent John Scott had made them pay for every penny. And somewhere in Mumbai, sitting in a prison cell, Rajesh Patel had learned the hardest lesson of his criminal career. You can hide behind fake names and encrypted communications and international borders, but you can't hide from justice. Not when Agent John Scott is on your trail. Author's note: this story is fictional, but based on real scam operations that steal billions from elderly Americans every year. These India-based call center scams are a genuine crisis affecting thousands of victims. If you or someone you know receives suspicious calls claiming to be from Microsoft, Apple, the IRS, or any other organization demanding immediate payment or remote computer access, hang up immediately and report it to the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center, IC3.gov. Real companies and government agencies will never call you demanding payment or threatening arrest. Stay safe and protect our seniors.